Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we are going to be learning about plant defenses for GCSE Biology. This is actually the last part of the module in health and disease or infection and response, depending on what exam board you're learning about. So we will be moving on to something slightly different in the future in biology lessons with me. So if you do enjoy these videos, you can check all of them out on my YouTube channel. I've placed them in a playlist for you, along with all the other playlists as well. So if you're currently studying for your GCSEs or you're trying to get ahead for your revision, you can easily find all the biology, chemistry and physics modules on my channel in playlist form. I also will have my Instagram and TikTok linked for you in the description box if you are interested. It's also in the bio on my YouTube channel too. So all my revision resources are there for you to navigate to and use, and obviously help to improve your grades as well. Thank you so much if you've already subscribed, by the way. It's amazing to have you here. So let's get into it. What are we talking about today? Like I said, we're talking about plant defenses. And you might be thinking, well, what do plants need defense from? Why do they need to protect themselves? Well, plants need to protect themselves from a few things. The first one is organisms that want to eat them, because plants have lots of nutrients. They obviously contain lots of water. Specifically, if you're a plant in the desert, lots of animals will want to eat you because you have lots of water inside. We want to be very careful, though, with the language we use. Never, ever, ever say predator, because a predator is referring to an animal that eats, hunts, and kills other animals. And a plant can't really be hunted. It can't be killed. It can be killed because it's living, but it can't be hunted like another animal would be. So it's something to be aware of. You would instead want to use maybe the word herbivore, or just organism as well. Lots of insects, obviously, and obviously plants as well. So the word herbivore is probably the best word to go with. Just don't use the word predator. Another way plants need to defend themselves is against the weather conditions. So whether it's a really hot climate, whether it's a really cold climate, or a real change in the weather, especially nowadays with global warming and climate change, the weather changes quite often. I'm currently based in the UK, so the weather does change quite a lot. There's a lot of rainy weather, and plants need to be able to withstand that weather change. Actually, interestingly enough, a lot of scientists are using genetically modified organisms, or GMO crops, to actually prevent plants being destroyed by weather changes. And I'll actually leave some interesting information about GMO crops in the description box below. That's actually a part of paper 2, genetic modification. So it is relevant to the GCSE course, but also quite topical now. A lot of the crops that we eat, such as fruit and vegetables, are actually genetically modified, or genetically enhanced in some way. So it's quite an interesting topic. But plants also have their own innate, natural ways of preventing being affected by different changes in the climate too. And the other way that plants defend themselves is they need to defend themselves against pathogens. Just like you and I defend ourselves from pathogens with our immune system, plants also have mechanisms that help them prevent being infected by pathogens such as a virus, a protist, a fungus, or a bacteria. So very, very interesting. Plants have their own way and methods of protecting themselves and survive, just like you and I do. So let's talk about some of these mechanisms. The first one we're going to talk about is physical defense mechanisms. How does a plant physically prevent diseases entering them? How does it physically prevent itself being eaten, etc., etc.? So one of the ways is the bark that you would find around a tree. This is like a thick layer of dead tissue that protects the tree from the outside world. So it helps to withstand the fluctuation in temperature and water and rain and sun and all that good stuff. But also it actually helps the plant not be eaten as easily. There are some organisms, some insects, some birds that actually have adapted to be able to go through the bark quite easily. But lots of them can't do that as easily as others. And the reason those animals want to get through past the bark is because of the phloem that's found within the tree. Remember, the phloem is a tube-like structure that transports sugary fluid up and down the plant, such as glucose, fructose, etc., etc. So an animal would want to get to that because the liquid, the water is in there, but also the sugars that are the nutrients as well. But also remember, the bark also protects against pathogens as well. So any viruses or bacteria that could enter the plant those will be prevented by that physical barrier. Just like our skin is a physical barrier, bark is also a physical barrier too. Plants also have leaves that have a waxy cuticle, and this is a layer that protects it from changes in weather, and also from pathogens and animals as well. Cellulose is found in the cell wall of plant cells, and this helps to keep the plant strong and gives support. And this also acts as a further barrier to prevent any pathogens from entering. Also, another physical defense mechanism, this also links to sort of mechanical defenses. I'll talk about this in a moment, but plants also have thorns and spikes to stop them being eaten by herbivores. So like I said, this also links to the mechanical defense mechanism. Thorns and sharp spikes stop them being eaten from herbivores, but there are some amazing other adaptations that plants have. For example, the plant called Mimosa pudica. This is a interesting fern. Ferns are one of the plants that have been on the earth for millions and millions of years, but they actually sometimes are called sensitive plants, these particular variety, because if an insect tries to crawl onto it, it will actually curl up and prevent it from doing so. And the leaves will actually droop and curl around on itself to prevent insects from climbing up the leaves and actually trying to eat them. So that's one of the mechanisms that these plants have. We also have the idea of mimicry. So some plants will actually utilize the world around them to prevent them being eaten too. So in the case of the passion flower, it's actually adapted to have yellow spots around the nectar or on the actual petals itself. And this causes butterflies that would normally lay their eggs on these flowers so that when they hatch, they have something to eat. It actually prevents those butterflies from actually laying their eggs there. They actually see it as other butterfly eggs, and this stops those butterflies from laying their eggs there because they think, oh, okay, well, there's going to be competition there's already some eggs there, I'll go to another plant instead. So the passion flower uses mimicry to prevent it being eaten in the long term, which is quite cool as well. And then also we have this idea of chemical defense mechanisms. So some plants have this amazing ability to produce, well, I say amazing for them. They have this ability to produce poisons or chemicals that stop them being eaten by herbivores. So for a good example of this would be the stinging nettle. If you've ever accidentally touched a stinging nettle, brush past one, you'll know how itchy they can be and how irritating they can be. It's a chemical that causes the animal or the herbivore to actually not want to eat them because they feel pain, essentially. Lots of berries also can make animals such as herbivores feel sick or be sick, and this is because of the poisons that those plants produce that don't affect them but actually cause the person or the animal eating it to feel those symptoms so they don't eat them again. Also, however, some plants will actually produce chemicals to help them be protected from pathogens like bacteria, such as the witch hazel plant and the mint plant. These are actually used now in medicine. We actually can utilize those properties for our own benefit, but those plants will naturally create those chemicals to actually help themselves be protected from those different pathogens, which is really, really cool. And then last but not least, I wanted to just mention other plant adaptations. This is more of a adaptation to survive, and I thought it'd be worth mentioning here. This is not necessarily a defense mechanism, but it's more an interesting way plants have adapted throughout the period of time on Earth to actually support themselves and be the best, most evolved version of themselves. So we have loads of different plants, obviously, but they're all slightly different. So these are three that you'd find in more tropical climates like the rainforest. The first one is a type of succulent plant. This is called a lithops plant. Sometimes it's even called the stone plant or the tooth plant. And essentially it looks kind of like a stone. So a lot of animals would look at this and they wouldn't know it was a plant, so they'd walk past it. But the actual lithops plant itself has very thick leaves. These are kind of thick tubers, you would almost say, that contain lots of water. So in the case of, say, in the desert, lots of animals would want to eat those plants. However, because this plant looks like a stone, it's kind of using that mimicry mechanism that we talked about. We also have two other plants that actually have adapted in very boggy, marshy areas to actually get some nutrients, because in those areas, the soil doesn't have many nitrates. There may be more competition for nitrates in the soil as well. So they actually have adapted to be carnivorous and eat animals such as insects that would naturally occur in those boggy, marshy environments. So we have the Venus flytrap, which has specialized structures on the leaves. So when when an insect touches those almost little prongs, they will clamp shut and dissolve that insect using enzymes that are found there. And the pitcher plant as well is very similar in the fact that it has a nice sugary liquid found within the pitcher itself. The word pitcher, by the way, is kind of like the word for a glass, which is kind of what this plant has adapted to look like. Those sugary liquids found in the pitcher plant attract those insects, and once those insects have gone into the plant, it's too slippery to get out, and they will dissolve into the pitcher plant itself. Those nutrients, such as the nitrates, the protein that is found within those insects, will be utilized by the plant to grow, for growth and repair and things like this. So other adaptations that plants have used, which I thought was quite interesting and part of this topic, really. Thank you so much for watching today. I have been the GCSE science teacher and you have been curious. If you did enjoy the video, feel free to give it a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any uploads, and do share this video with someone else so they can also learn about the cool ways plants defend themselves from different environmental factors like pathogens and the weather. If you did enjoy the video, I have more over here which I have linked for you, and check out my Instagram and TikTok where I do post lots of revision resources as well. But in the meantime, have a fantastic day and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.